Oh, I sure did.
There we go.
Da,
All right.
da, da. All right. The mango margarita
Margarita
is
time.
open. And, you know, once you've given that a good pour, Chris, I feel like we need to do a little toast to all the fabulous fathers out there. Happy Father's Day. Oh, solo cup, nice.
This is a
Oh, it's like
heavy duty for a serious
nice.
little cup.
All right.
Reusable.
Cheers, to all the dads out there. Thank you for being fabulous.
Okay.
Delicious.
Okay. Now we're ready.
Now we are ready. I had a wonderful little Facebook Messenger exchange with our friend John Chance Acevedo earlier today.
What did he have to say?
Well, he liked one of my Father's Day Saturday photos yesterday. I celebrated with Dad yesterday. We had a fabulous time. Happy Father's Day out there, Dad. Just doing great stuff around Norwalk. We went to the beach. We went to the mall. We had tapas. We stopped by Ecoevolution, as everyone should. And we had just a wonderful time. So anyways, he liked one of those pictures. And so I was like, happy Father's Day, Chance. And then we chit-chatted a little bit. And it was so nice because I said, I got to get to put it in the chat. I miss you guys. And he said, we appreciate you and Chris so much. I'm like, we appreciate you. It was a sweet conversation. Yeah. Everybody go to put it in the chat every twice a month on Wednesdays, I believe it still is. Make sure you're following Philip J. Curtis, aka Midnight, and John Chance Acevedo, our good friends.
That's right. And they always have a solid lineup.
Always.
Of people and it's always it's like who are the two old guys on the Muppets, who would sit up there and looking down and comment on everything. And that's like those two guys. They're just always sort of bickering with each other.
The banter is A+ times 1,000. So much fun. You gotta check it out if you haven't yet. A while back, we put it in the chat to FUMFA Live. We had a really fun reading. It went extra long because we had so many readers. It was incredible. Such an awesome lineup of friends who we also had coming through in group readings and in feature readings on our show. I just really had so much fun over the years. I still can't believe it's been over 3 years now, Chris. How amazing has this been? This community.
I don't know. But I feel old when I remember that. It's been
it is
zipping by.
Time really is zipping by. It's weird. I was having a reflective moment looking in the mirror. And I was just like, it's been more, really, it's been 3 years since we were quarantining hardcore, and things really feel, knock on wood, really back to normal at this point. And I'm so thankful for that. But also I was reflecting on how everything has changed, how my life has changed, the different things I've gotten to do, different people I've gotten to meet, maybe people who have, kind of moved on in their lives around me. It's a real interesting thing. So you should all write a poem about it and come down to Ecoevolution next Friday night to see us in person.
I was talking to a woman the other day who was in a writing workshop of mine who has agoraphobia. But she during the pandemic, she realized like everybody now is in the same boat.
Yeah,
they're not going out, and it's almost like everybody had agoraphobia. And then as things loosened up, she's used that opportunity to go out and do more things. So it's almost like it helped her.
Wow.
Agoraphobia because it was sort of like she felt less alone.
Right.
And then now she's doing stuff. She's going to yoga retreats and things like that. It was really interesting take on the whole thing.
That is the most beautiful story I've heard about coming out of quarantine there. That's such a beautiful thing. I think the power of community, just like knowing that you're not alone in going through whatever you're going through, how that really does help you. I mean, I can think of how many times that surprised me too. Like if I was going through something difficult and I realized how many, people on the internet, people in my life, people in my family, or among my friends, really understood the same thing. And that makes you somehow, braver or more comfortable. Like you don't wish that other people go through the same hard things as you, but it is comforting. And it's like, you know what? All right. That's somehow giving you this strength. That's a beautiful thing. And we talk about that with writing too. Like when people are writing about these really challenging maybe health issues or maybe grief or something like that, it does help to hear what everyone, to hear other people's stories with it and how they got through it. Powerful stuff.
Hey, it's 8:01, so
It's 8:01. It's time for our official welcome. My apologies to Fairfield, to Fairfield University MFA. FUMFA Live, reading number 131. We are so excited to welcome tonight Sandra Marchetti and MayaRose, two amazing poets here with us this evening. We can't wait to hear them, and we hope that you are super excited as well. And we will start our readings off in a few minutes. But Chris, tell everyone what is coming up soon.
Certainly. Well, this coming Friday, we return to our one of our favorite places in the whole world, Eco Evolution, for Chris and Katie's open mic for the month of June, and we have an amazing lineup of, I believe, basically all poets. Eric Rosenbaum, who's a poet who plays music as well, so he's
hilarious,
poet.
Fun. Yeah.
Also, Ron Mark Thompson, Dara Kalima, and those three are all coming up from the Bronx. They know each other from doing poetry down in the Bronx. And then Ben Grossberg will be in. So we'll have those four poets, and then we'll have just a slew of musicians, poets, prose, comedy, perhaps.
We got it all. You can't miss it, peeps. It is an amazing time.
It starts at 7:00. It's at Eco Evolution, and if you need info, it's on our Facebook page and what have you. And watch us, follow us on Insta, and all that stuff, and you'll see it. And then we're off the next week because it is the holiday, for the 4th of July holiday, but then we're back here on the 9th. And we've got a whole bunch of FUMFA folks coming back. We're doing a night with 4 FUMFA alums.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
All of them worth checking out. The great Tommy Hahn, Matthew Hamilton, Colin Halloran, and David Fitzpatrick will be here. So anybody interested in some great writing, please show up for that.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. We're so excited to have these folks coming back to share what new things they're working on. It's going to be a lot of fun. So please stay tuned. We do actually have a mailing list now. So if you are one of our friends out there who does not use social media, please reach out to us. Reach out to our email address, fumfalive@gmail.com, so that we can get you on that email list. But make sure you're following us for all of the great stuff that's going on. We hope to see you at Eco Evolution next Friday. And of course, back online with us in July. And I'm just seeing so many great friends out here in the chat right now. Hey, Sandy Carlson and our friend Chance.
That's what we were just talking about.
Yes, we were just talking about you, Chance.
His ears were in flames. His ears were.
Yes. You and Midnight, we were just chatting about you. And welcome everyone who is joining in right now. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. We're so happy that you're joining us, and it's going to be a fabulous evening of poetry from Sandy Marchetti and MayaRose. And we are going to get started right now with our readings. we are super excited to welcome up MayaRose. Welcome,
There
MayaRose.
she is.
Hey,
Hey. How are you this
I'm
evening?
wonderful. Excited to be here. Grateful to be here. Thank you to you both for providing this platform and inviting me to it.
Yes, absolutely, MayaRose. We're so excited to hear you. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you with your bio. MayaRose has studied and performed theater, improv, and poetry throughout Connecticut, New York, and LA. In Los Angeles, she became inspired to bring her poetry to the next level while working as a co-coordinator with Expression Mondays, a local open mic and performance organization. There, she was part of the team that launched FLOW, Fluent Love of Words. I love that. That's so cool. Which has grown into a successful nonprofit that rehabilitates incarcerated youth in LA and is led by 2017 CNN hero, Mr. Gary Grammer. MayaRose writes poetry. Harry Grammer. Apologies. MayaRose writes poetry, spoken word, and lyrical essays that speak to her unique experience of life. Anywhere from personal encounters to broad yet difficult social commentary. She approaches all her work through the lens of redemption and evolution as one navigates through the spirals of life. Her book, Poems for My Broken Heart, Expressions on the Spiral of Life, is available on Amazon, and she is currently editing her second collection. Awesome. I'm so sorry. I'm still like getting over a cough. Her second collection, Grace and Lifeliness.
Lifelines.
Maya ran Expression Mondays East at Neverending Books in New Haven for 7 years and is co-hosting Coffee House Speakeasy open mic at Studio Hill Gallery in Woodbury. You can follow her latest work on MayaRoseSpokenWord.com, plus subscribe to her channel, MayaRose Spoken Word, on YouTube. Woo! All right, MayaRose, we're excited. Take it away.
So, okay. Take the mask off. Go deep, dig under. Warp the false identity, protecting the selling point. Washing out the twisted perception bent by time. Take the mask off. Stand naked in the level playing field of false bravado, wishing past its master plan to keep it hidden. Faking the muster of dancing the prance and manipulating the story. Who your face is meant to be, not the stare throwing them down the beaten path. Rocking out the noise of shaping its thunder, making papier-mâché statues of me almighty, rolling the boulder to watch it fall to the end of have no doubt. Take the mask off, reveal the real flaws in all thorny bush, bastard to life. See my twine and draw it closer. Shaking my pounding chest to speak the words pressed silent by your dissident's response. Merging all sense of chakra force, stuck orange by the blues in my mouth. Take the mask off. Again, in multiple pleas to channel a clear transmission into acceptance. Buoyed upon your doorstep and swept up by your tears. Touched with split personalities longing to be helped in your arms. Swallowed shallow in the current, bobbing lifeless to resist this wretched nonsense. See my face, watch it grow through the lies, standing upright for the cause, strapped in defenses. Wobble top my arrogance to do it alone. Grabbing at fingertips spread out so all will feel, falling wet to mop it up, dissolved to a puddle across the mirror. Smeared in black ink, dripping off a masquerade of newly painted glitter. Yes, sir, a no good thug. A colored boy mulatto, not raised right, disrespecting the law. A criminal at the core of his DNA Negro. Strip him down of all his humanity, revoke his right to vote, and set him off to fight the fires of the white wealthy for chimp change. But no, it's not about race. Miseducate him and leave him to fend for himself among the chaos that is his history. We all done deserve what comes to us if we don't keep our nose clean. Concrete wallpaper and liquor store hallways are no excuse. Pull yourself up, been great. I did it. I got by. No one paved the way for me. Slavery has nothing to do with the politeness I choose to put in my voice. Bus boycotts and water hose beatings did not touch my college fund. Crack, heroin, deadbeat dads, and single moms has nothing to do with my inheritance of love. My suburban security and ambition has no bearing on your decision to act a fool. Pull your pants up and speak to me proper, boy. A knee on the neck helps the heart of this civilization make peace on the dead souls of your ancestors. Codependency, the obsessive mind, thoughts of a woman. My hormone-specific estrogen-derived codependency. The back burner I sit second fiddle to a man, a place more comfortable than my own skin. The value of my life set by the willingness of his affection. I play the game so well, a strong, independent woman, hear me roar with loneliness and longing, an empty voice, too embarrassing to admit to this childish need. I walk on, stepping lightly into the light of who I am, slowly revealing my face to the love I already possess. Crazy is a woman scorned, heartbroken and shattered, neglected by a prison of her own making, deeply feeling the cut of every broken promise lied so stylishly through paper doll lips. Crazy is thinking higher of her brilliant mind's potential barely reflected in the truth of the day, seduced into believing her presence can blast down the wall made thick by nature's blow. Crazy is the reaction of cold heart nostalgia in brushing off all past lovers as unsteady and overbearing, denial of whose hand grips the sword of silence, falsely offering friendship as breadcrumbs for severance to untrue love. Crazy is holding on to fleeting connection as if it were a human right to bear witness to another soul, standing bare-chested, exposed and short of breath, dissolving all traces of you, me, and us for gut-wrenching survival to get out of the maze. Crazy is pretending at grown-up while playing teenage fling, shocking the system to contemplate forever, ripping through the silky web of polite interaction in front of sheer rage and hate and all those things we are meant to keep tucked away in composure, sweeping clean, depressed, loving, and shame, raised by a family of wolves, dressed as sheep, quick to avoid the view of another in order to appear not so crazy. The middle place, in which the black on my face covers up the white genes I carry within. Unable to fully embrace the shame that history has set upon my people. I have no right to claim my part in the ethnic grand falloon of fried chicken, collard greens, and God almighty. White girl trapped in a black girl's body, dancing off beat to the music. Unsettled identity found in a boxer relaxer and a Debbie Gibson song. I give props to Mariah, in a language that I am not supposed to use, the slang of which dangles suffocating my outward appearance. A shell of myself that I am obligated to pay tribute to in a mode of composure that keeps our reputation in good standing. The public view of my kind weighs solely on my ability to act right. However, my whiteness gives me a free pass, a waiver for things like sports, spelling, and oppression. Though the native whisper of our ancestral bloods transcends the segregation with a gentle wisdom from above. Sitting Shiva, Mama God, bring us out of the underworld into your light of heaven, promised by the warm hearth of Demeter. The patriarchal past has reached its demise, yet no one moves aside from Durga's mighty force of nature. flooding us out of our old ideas and drying up the water that we use as tears of Mother Isis. Holds us dearly, but her grip is slipping while we wiggle ourselves into poverty overinflated and pushing down the last ounce of Kuan Yin's service to walk in the shadow of Jesus. Lift the chin to the sun and Ra still remains. There is no extinction in the womb, only crowding with elbows raised to answer the money call. That is your last best hope to make it count before you die. With Sedna, scarring the power out of your sentimental heart. I cry for you. I weep for me. I try for all, lest trying be my destruction under Pele's Bible, exhausted by fumes, ripping apart my neighborhood. Out of source, the devil dances with play on Pachamama's back as an unwelcome host, draining the blood, leaving my belly resourceless with disease to be bought and sold in the waiting room. Newt sky disguises the mystery under smog lamps. I can't comprehend the dust that burst into me, swallowing up the oxygen where none escapes. Mama Goddess, awaken now, not fighting, and gently tapping before it's too late to bury another loved one riddled with cancerous suffocation to what to do next. I ache for you. I scream for me. I surrender for all, lest surrender be the laziness that lacks the telling. What to do behind the burqa with wise eyes wishing better. Freya seducing the snake into the spider's web, feeding the nest and fumigating the forest. Merging the edges into smooth spikes of electricity, combustible by sheer will into another form, retreating into the synthesis of divine you and me. There you were, as I peeked around the corner, flashing me with those wide God eyes, washing away my shame and wiping stardust off my heart. On a rainbow bridge, skipping to the place in the sun carved of lovers and bubbles made of roses. Strawberry scent reflects in the mirror, casting out the shadow of doubts, painted with everlast and evermore. My hand glued to the electricity of me and you, with butterflies singing familiar tunes to relate to. I finish your thought without a sound reverberating off the silhouette of merging flesh. Let me drink off your brain drops as you gather all my heartbeats, the place where love outweighs fear and all that troubles you meets ears erect. Syncopated step and leaving no man behind as we gallop into the night sky to feel the moon beams on our naked skin, twin flame heat igniting the world to see nothing but the essence of our joy and the story of love's hope. Moving mountains to tell the tale beyond the forefathers' sight. No dominion here, only giggles and dandelions. Crushing the lie and hiding the boundary, wrapped tight in combining arms, solid in gentle hugs. So this one's a bit of work in progress, but I'm going to give it a go. You can't judge a priest rape the boy's Holy Ghost, Jesus Lord. They gotta be stopped like the cops killing young in the streets. Hold your nose. Better stop all your lying and your cheating, broke the backs on butts the poor. You better give up, pray for beasts, walk hand in hand before your Lord. The prison line, the gas line, moral decline, redefine to what's sublime. Standing tall with the rock, treading stardust upon a native soil. Set in your mind, make a vow, cleanse, bow, detach y'all from the oil. The sun can guide, charge your ride, light up your life, circle, no sides. Um, um, shift the note, reset your vote, change your course through what you buy. Discover, recover. My brother, Earth Mother, one life, do it right before you die. One life, do it right before you die. One life, do it right before you die. All right. So this one, next one is Teacher Ma'am. It is from my book, Poems from My Broken Hearts. Teacher Ma'am, I got carried away in my own brilliance. I saw it in the face of the young boy in front of me. I stifled all his creativity and my eager desire to oblige him into oblivion. Let me start that over. Teacher Ma'am, I got carried away in my own brilliance. I saw it in the face of the young boy in front of me. I stifled all his creativity and my eager desire to advise him into oblivion. The mind of this misgiving scrambles to find a way to correct it by again using my collections of philosophical learnings. My insides are desperate to grasp the past to save face in the future. I be the adult and they be the kids, the whipping post for years of unchanneled education. I prove my superiority in my ability to talk. In my smallness, the walls surrounding this narrow point of view echoes the need to prove my point. Raising the robots to blindly take charge of the conveyor belt, lifelessly sorting through whatever mass-produced item we decide to worship today to make meaning for existence. Allowing the tired limbs of their overworked adult roommates to take comfort in checking out with consumer-funded babysitters, gifted and growing up to be the best competitive destroyers of anything green, natural, and healthy, yet prosperous enough to spend 2 weeks vacation searching for places green, natural, and healthy, not in my backyard, covered in weed killer, nitrogen, and electric fencing. Those innocent eyes that I gaze into, knowing nothing of the spirit of innovation. My degree won't allow it, and history hasn't laid the groundwork. No time for it. The bell rang, and the next team needs to use the field while your hot pocket is getting cold. Pay attention, because I know best, according to the classroom monitor's assessment on my loyal adherence to the standards in which we are all too weak to dismantle, crumbling ourselves instead. Wasting the flame designed to spark a different toy to play with, here for our own amusement, stopped for a mere moment to try to enjoy a blip of senseless wonder and forever in the face of the young boy in front of me. All right, let's see. I think I have to do my social media poem. Since we're all on social media right now, might as well do a social media poem. I love social media. You may not get that according to this poem, but I do love social media. Social media, the friend at my side, placing the world in a container made perfect to fit in the palm of my hand. Seduced to write to you all my joy and the pain, compelled to feeling angry at the chaos that ices the path, looking to you for comfort and validation, crying out my loneliness for one soul to relate, holding this solid flesh to dream perhaps, comparing the laughs that dominate my wall of theoretical connection, posting the wisdom of the not so important leaders, watching life pass before my very hands, striking the keys with all caps desperation, tenderness felt with every like, soothing the temporary satisfaction of recognition, ignoring the truth behind the pocket of hell yes and word up, sizing up each impulse put before me to slide under the radar, wishing for the one to hold my essence in fearless permission, locked away in the corner of stilted and bonded, cleverly packaged in 140 characters of my many faces. I choose which to reveal to you today, arguing my point, backed up by conviction, stepping up to nothing. Distracted by the carefree youngster candid in your photo, forcing a smile to celebration of yet another blustery act of self-empowerment. Kudos to the one who said it like that. Fight the power, stand tall, walk on, sister. And other easy ways I support your cause. Showing up to nothing and requiring all of me to listen, quizzed by the selection of reality that slips beyond the noise, whispering needs to a soft crowd of diligent angels, working hard to break the board against the grain of timeless illusion, sitting pretty next to fluffy cats and dancing dogs, picked right for the grasping. Okay, let's see. I'll do another one from my book. Again, Penetrating Broken Heart. This one is called Heart. I no longer believe my heart. What does that thing know about life? It only sees emotions. Clouds of dust and smoke, illusions of fear and hurt that disguises itself as truth. I feel so deeply that I am confused by reality, lost in a perception of who I am, defined by others, family, friends, and a society of perfectionists, insisting that I generate more and relinquish my own inner truth. They are not going to bring me down. I declare here and now as I dig deeper into my unconscious knowing, into the lonely chambers of this broken heart to find the beauty and joy that is my birthright. It is not them. It is me. I see you. You are me. We are one, teachers on this journey. We are all images of love buried by obligations and insecurities, trying desperately to swim in the sea of everlasting peace, occasionally pushing each other down through jealousy and fear, not knowing that what we want to attain is the ocean of self-expression which lies within our soul, with a voice waiting to explode, pieces of art, poetry, music, love, and all the ways we as humans choose to paint the world with the colors of ourselves, connected to the well in the sky. Jump in and you can fly. Jump in and you can fly to the basin of cosmic creativity, splashing fantasy at your feet, igniting imagination into your brain, tempting your eyes to look at one another as co-creators of this human game, working together to figure out who we are, why we are here, revealing ourselves unconditionally accepted, free from the monetary illusion of the emotional cry of our hearts and the negativity that hides in our thoughts. Thoughts are words, words are power. Power can change a nation. Watch what you think and choose what you say. Be accountable to creation. All right. Okay, so I have one more. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. You're such a wonderful audience. So attentive. I'm not open to feedback. I see it in your face, nicely tucked away in the folds of that compliment of how my words touched your heart. A friendly tip from that one time he spoke her poem in front of the class and learned how to project and articulate correctly. I know how hard you work at being the best expert audience for all things oratory. And with that infectious grin and such a solid handshake, how can I contradict the ways I tell a story to preamble my presentation and manage to always stumble over the screech of the microphone? How when you saw that famous nomad from the city and oh so spunky talent from out west, and how you loved the way they leaned into the tale about the kids with the spaghetti on their face that made everyone feel that they were sitting at the table. But you have admired all my work and just love how I assemble a particulate of banter and flow of good alliteration. Is that the right word? Or metaphorical pattern? I thank you for the compliment and admire the oranges and yellows in your shirts. A wonderful dristy spot to calm my nerves that you said you didn't even notice. With that said, and what to for, among sincere thanks and appreciation to you for attending. However, with a grin, not open to feedback. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate being here. Thank you for listening.
Wow! MayaRose! Woo, woo, woo! MayaRose, just awesome, awesome, awesome poetry. Beautifully performed.
Yes.
So powerful. Everything from like the powerful, the political, the very, very stirring to just the joyful and ecstatic and just so exciting and celebratory. Just so wonderful to listen to. An absolute joy, MayaRose.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, glad you're so welcome. And, you know, it was like watching a master class in acting as well, because you would take on these
Beautiful
personas
performance.
and characters, and you know, it's like, is how much is you, how much is somebody else, doesn't really matter. It was just like you inhabited them. And yeah, I think I have some questions about that later, but
We're excited. We're excited.
because it's deep. So fantastic. Thank you.
So fantastic, MayaRose. Thank you so much. And we will see you soon in the Q&A. Everybody save your questions for 9 o'clock for MayaRose. MayaRose, thank you one more time. All right. Chris Belden, what a start to the evening.
Amazing.
Just fantastic. Well, I am equally excited for our second reader of the evening, another fabulous poet, Sandra Marchetti. Welcome, Sandra. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing great. That was a wonderful way to re-energize me. I've been out all day running around and it's been a great day, but hearing MayaRose read just brought me back into that poetry ecosystem.
Totally.
Gave me the jolt I needed.
I know, you know what? I know exactly what you mean. That is awesome, Sandra, and we are excited to hear you. Chris, would you do the honor of reading Sandra's bio for us?
Of course, Sandra Marchetti is the author of 2 full-length collections of poetry, IL 228 forthcoming from Stephen F. Austin State University Press.
Awesome.
Confluence from Sundress Publication. She is also the author of 4 chapbooks of poetry and lyric essays.
Awesome.
Sandra's poetry and essays appear widely is in Pleiades, Ecotone, Southwest Review, Subtropics, and elsewhere. Sandy is the poetry editor emeritus at River Styx magazine. She earned an MFA in creative writing poetry from George Mason University and now serves as the coordinator of tutoring services at the College of DuPage, I hope I'm saying that right now, in the Chicagoland area. Sandy, take it away.
Thank you so much, both of you. I really appreciate it. I feel like this is a great, you said you had 2 poets tonight, and you certainly do, but you've got some really wide variety. So I think that's awesome for the audience and for us as readers. You never want too many people who are doing the exact same thing. So I'm going to read a good bit out of my second full-length collection, which just came out this past month from Stephen F. Austin State University Press, aisle 228. This is a book about the Chicago Cubs baseball team, going to baseball games with my father and listening to baseball on the radio. So definitely has been a Father's Day gift. I've seen poets give it to their fathers, which has just been lovely. And so I'm going to read some of those. And then if poetry plus baseball is not your thing, I'll read from some of my other works as well.
Andy, I'm
Yes.
so sorry. I just want to pop in. The audio is a little bit garbly. Maybe we can try it without the AirPod if that's
Yeah.
possible.
Let's try
I'm so
that.
sorry.
Nope.
Just want to make sure it's crisp and perfect for your reading. Okay.
Now we can't hear it. Now we can't hear anything. Is there a way
Hear it.
override the?
How about now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Perfect. Take it away,
Oh
Sandy.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know how much anybody heard, but I my second full-length collection just came out last month. It's about going to baseball games with my father, listening to baseball on the radio. We live in Chicago area, so I'm a Chicago Cubs fan. If that's not your favorite thing, baseball, then I will read some poems about other things too. So sit tight. This first poem, the Cubs were known for years and years as this baseball team of lovable losers. So I wrote this first poem almost 10 years ago. It's been a journey publishing this book, which is something I'd be happy to talk about later in the Q&A. And this is the first poem I wrote for it. Frame. Tucked in the western grandstand, imagine Wrigley, a sliver of light, orange-green beams gone between, golden arches as scoreboard plates clink in place. The fourth inning haze filters the sun, a yolk yawning itself undone in the upper deck air, straining my gaze in aisle 228. My father gripes and wipes his nose through an April game, the team terrible again. Yet players lope over this green hill, and our mind agrees to rise and clap for them. Okay, so someone who is kind of known as, I don't know. I mean, if you've seen Major League, you probably know Bob Uecker. He's sort of a legendary yet cartoonish figure in the world of baseball. And as poets, we do these ragtag sort of book tours, right? Where we get in our car and drive all over our region and do some readings. And I did a lot of those with my first book. And I'd listen to a lot of baseball on the radio while I was in the car. So I wrote this poem about that situation, listening for Bob Uecker. My father thinks you can find a signal from anywhere. A Mets game in Cincinnati, the Reds in Tennessee. I tell him sometimes the mountains curtain the call, or a semi bleeding its long, low horn, its lights scanning the corn. But 50 ago, and know a wave arrayed in the distance spun out its curve to find you. Okay, so another thing that we do sometimes is we get on planes and go to conferences. So there is a lot of travel in this book as well. This one's called Cross Country. At 15,000 feet and climbing, I look down from seat 7A into a suburban swimming pool and feel my glasses splash. Whenever I fly, I search for the baseball diamonds. There are so many in the Midwest, and you can always spot them. How the dust plumes, how green the grass, how there is so much good land for them. And that's, of course, Native American land, which there's an end note about that in this book. Okay, so ballparks, I think I've already read a few poems that make them sound like these idyllic places, and we think of them in our American culture as cathedrals, but they're quite disgusting, or they can be after a game. So I decided I wanted to write the most disgusting poem about ballparks. I don't know, I mean, maybe not the most disgusting, but this is the reality of the situation after the game ends. It's called Denouement. Beer on the bricks and cheap meat. Piss that brines the seats and the frame as we exit the park at the end of the game. A dozen doors thwack open, dull as scrapped cups. Through the clatter, a popcorn vendor crams his bags in the trash. We meet in a square of air below the stairs to curse and bless, sopped in sweat. Hands grimed on tunnel walls, slathered in mustard and ads, shuffle us from the Cuban sun, ants pressed away from the day. So I think this is a perfect poem for this audience, or I hope it is, as perfect as they can get for baseball poetry for this audience. There is a famous baseball player. His name is Ichiro Suzuki. He's a Japanese player, and he retired a few years ago. One of the greatest players of all time, and he played well into his 40s. And I almost thought of him as sort of like, well, I thought his story sort of neatly fit into the idea of sirens and that sort of mythos of like retirement calling to him and him coming back and like being sort of this mirage that we could sort of see coming every year to play again. I don't know, it's a little bit complicated, but I wrote a poem about this player as a merman, sort of coming out of the ocean to attend spring training one more time. And this poem's called Myth for Ichiro. You know, part of it is him rising from the sea of Japan, again, a siren who whispers, never die. We want to believe in permanence, the not quite going, the falling back into the waves and surfacing, spring after spring, walking the sand in his cleats. Okay, so I know that this program's based in Connecticut, and I am, based in Chicago, but my mother was born in New Jersey, and her parents were Brooklyn Dodgers fans, and they went on many dates to Ebbets Field. So, I have many Los Angeles Dodgers poems in this collection, but I have Brooklyn Dodgers poems. So I figured due to the East Coast, crowd here, I would read this one. It's called Fable. My mother's parents met in Brooklyn, and I wear my grandmother's stone. I'm sure her diamond reflected Ebbets with him in tow, the severe man who gifted its glow. I imagine them gliding past the gates, him admiring her tiny waist. He'd say to their children, dessert is a look at your mother, just a taste. I must begin at the luncheonettes, though, before Jackie slid into home. They'd made dates to rip tickets, and she'd smile while he snickered. My grandparents headed west after the Dodgers left. Ebbets sold and blown. Okay, I'll just read a couple more from here. Okay, so one of my earliest memories of watching baseball is the 1993 World Series. And I don't know if there's anyone who's listening that remembers watching that, but it was the second World Series in a row that the Blue Jays won. Joe Carter hit a walk-off home run, and he bounced around the bases like he was on air, you know. And it's ironic because my husband that I later went on to marry is Canadian, and his family celebrated those World Series wins heartily. But you know, when the Cubs were in the World Series, all these memories of the first World Series I watched started coming back. So I wrote one about the 1993 World Series. A 9-year-old girl watches the 1993 World Series. That square of unimaginable green, his leap over a cloud, out of a red cap, curls tumbled with sweat beads. Color patches beamed from the box in our toy room. I craned my neck to see joy. Okay, and I think I'll finish here with poems from my new book. This book is available on Amazon. If you just search aisle 228, it's also available from tamu Press, which is the distributor, Texas A&M Press. So, and also if you want, friend me on Facebook or find me anywhere on social media, and I can send you a signed copy. I'd be more than happy to do that. Late October. It's the first night of the World Series, and 10 jets, like stars, home toward O'Hare. Runways roll out the planes in draped carpet. Even though Little League is over, each ball field lit up as if by candles at the dinner table, welcoming someone's return. Okay, so I'm going to switch over. I've actually been working on another manuscript at the same time as I was working on aisle 228. And it's called Diorama, and I'm still looking for a publisher for that. And that manuscript focuses on a woman's relationship with nature and with food. It's a little darker. And, you know, I think they're both a bit tinged with memoir, but this one, Diorama, basically how it started was me trying to pay homage to the poets that I loved. So every poem kind of started with trying to incorporate a line or a title or an image from another poet. And of course, you know, making sure they got credit and notes. But starting with that and trying to build my own poem around it. Because when I was walking out in the wider world or interacting with people, some of these lines from Elizabeth Bishop or Louise Glick or Lee Young Lee would just repeatedly come to me. And I was like, okay, you know, that line is haunting me. I want to write a poem around it. So I'm just going to read a couple of those. This one is actually after Louise Glick. You know, we all know The Wild Iris, I think. And in The Wild Iris, she says, you know, at the end of my suffering, there was a door. Is a really famous line from that book. And I thought about what's beyond the door. So I tried to write about what was, when you open that door, what's behind it. So this is called The Door for LG. A frozen field, the marbled lake. What I don't know is that you have laid all of this before me. You stand behind, eyes wide as a raptor's. I create a carpet of ice between us. I want to say, this is the end of happiness. Will I find love? Will I accept love? Okay. There's also a very famous, well, I think everybody knows Anne Sexton, right? My favorite poem of Anne Sexton's is this little poem called The Nude Swim, where she's talking about swimming off the coast of Italy with her partner. It's a really gorgeous poem if you haven't read it. But she talks about their eyes being sea color, and then their eyes being sky color. And it's all about those greens and blues. So I wrote a poem kind of in response to that about a beach that I go to that's very secluded up in northern Wisconsin, that nobody seems to know about. But I go with my husband sometimes. It's called A Swim at Europe Bay Beach in July, deserted. The lake glints green at the edge of nightmare, its world's end in the deep bay, gray and stumbling. The lake itself a tumbler, a boat you bobbed upwards out of. I am convinced now that more than anything, what we want is to live forever. No one can see us, smashed as sea glass, open. The ants eating our cherries at the shoreline. And I also wrote, just kind of on the love poem theme, myself and three other poets actually wrote, and this is somewhere between what I would call a typical, like a co-authored collection and an anthology, but it's neither of them. It's a book that four of us wrote together. And so the four of us all wrote love poems, and they're a traditional sort of love poems. So I'm just going to read mine, one of mine out of here, which is also in this diorama collection that I'm still looking to home, Westward. And this takes a line from Lee Young Lee's Eating Alone, which is another fabulous poem if you're looking for something about solitude. But this one's called Westward. Lip the rivulet, cold, brown, and old. Your glow glints from the collapsed town limits. I ride on toward my anonymity's wildness. I roam the city murmuring, I am young, my heart is strong, and I can take it. And I think I'll finish up with a couple from my first full-length collection, Confluence. And again, any of these books, if you want to find me on social media or find them on Amazon, they're all available. I'd love to send you an autographed one. If you friend me on social media, we can make it happen. So this book, my first collection, was my MFA thesis. And it went through a lot of iterations after that, but Sundress Publications was kind enough to publish this in 2014. And this diorama project I've been talking about, this was sort of the first stage in that process. Like, I think of diorama as sort of a continuation with twists from my first book, Confluence. Okay. I don't know if any of you know, there's a poem, and I think a whole book actually, by David Baker called Never Ending Birds. And the poem itself and the book are fantastic. I would definitely say to check them out. But I love that line. It haunted me. I thought, what does it mean, never ending birds? So I wrote my own Never Ending Birds after David Baker. Soft bulbs of morpho blue, tight light pruned to a circuit. The swallows feather and vector the wind. I plume to watch. Freshed in the ground, they ring the trees as their own sweet planets. Continuous streaks, the green-blue preens take flying lessons. Beam to the ground they are bound by, like no flown thing. They bring around the ground, and bright as floods in winter, flap the wind that takes them, pushes them into its envelope. The swallows, so close, beat. I let them scrim my stance, twist neatly solar. I swallow, lift at my chest where the freckles crack, where the wet wings gleam. Swallows sweep out to swing my heart up with the hawk, who circles the skirmish, weeps and screams. Okay, so who doesn't like a good dead fish poem? I think a dead fish is a great symbol to throw in there just to keep everybody on their toes. What does it mean, you know? So here's one called Peninsula. A washed ring of sounds, rocks glazed with boat music. Clouds soot the forests in delicate black salt. A dead fish, bass or bluegill, is half gone back to the rocks and beyond, lies no-eyed on the shoreline. Its extant others, us and canoes and kayaks, merge to the white straight horizon and wish to reach up. Flexed fingers grab canopy, chill cliffs, a dark formed maze. I am 7 times the size and climbing, slamming my cheeks into birches, moving north through the dark day. There, that song by Taylor Swift, Anti-Hero, where she says, everyone else is a sexy baby, but in the video, she's like this huge, like oversized giant. This poem was written probably 15 years ago now, but I think of that song when I read it, where the narrator is this huge giant, you know, leaping through the canopy and on a mission, you know. So okay. I have to read just one more. I think I'll finish on this one. Who doesn't like food? I mean, I'm a big foodie poet. I love eating. I love taking unnecessary photos of my food. And this is one time I was blessed to be on a residency at Vermont Studio Center, and there was a farmer's market nearby, and we were sick of eating residency food, and I went out and got some fresh food, and it was delicious lunch. After a 2-mile walk to the stand, I open a spigot on the raspberries, blush hearts in the hand. The crackers brick against my lips, slide through a stick of butter. I rub dirt from the tomatoes, sorting the demands of red orange, pink, cream. I flick stems on the bank, watch them wash upstream. It is noon. The bees are circling for somewhere to land. Fruit breaks on my teeth, spreads through the mouth's star. A galaxy expands. Thank you.
Woo, Sandy! What a totally fun reading. You know, we were in the world of baseball, just loving
That's
it
right.
with you. I also love the super gross baseball poem. That was also fabulous. And you know, just getting to see all of these different moments, these responses to other poems. You know, we had these
Right.
sort of soaringly joyful poems and these wonderful different scenes. And it was so much fun to hear you like kind of explain the connections between them and the connections between these and other poems. Just a delightful reading.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool, like, to, you know, to have like just a series of poems that are based on other poems or inspired by other poems, or it's
Yeah.
like, you know, that Louise Gluck, you know, door, you know, it's like, okay, what's
Oh,
beyond,
awesome.
and you know, a whole series of poems. That would be great. And baseball, I think it's such a poetic sport anyway, so it's perfect. And I love Bob Uecker. So I mean, I just smile thinking of Bob Uecker. So
So
I
fun.
get a big kick out of that.
Oh,
But
I'm so
yeah,
glad.
and the Cubbies. Listen, I grew up in Ohio rooting for Cleveland, so you know, it was rough.
Yeah. Well, I didn't read the real specific Cubs World Series poems, you know, and maybe now I know that I did it for a reason, to spare you a little.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
So funny. You know, I don't
My
know
whole
anything.
life I've been waiting on it. Jeez. Anyway,
I don't know
great stuff,
anything
great
about
stuff.
baseball, but like I feel like your poems could get me into baseball. I feel like that could be my way in, Sandy. Those were just so much fun to listen to. And I love the what the as a mermaid, what was his name? The
Ichiro.
yes,
Ichiro is a
and like
mermaid.
having him like
Yeah.
come back, and there's this
Merman.
beautiful quote about like permanence. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. No,
That's so great.
baseball is very, very poetic. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
It's like
It's a
it's about
metaphor.
time, it's space, and I don't know. I mean, you
I
could.
feel like I can get into it
I'm
now.
sure
I
people
feel
have written about that, but
It's open for so many things. Religion. I mean, you can go at just the timelessness of the game, how long it's been around, all the records. If you don't like baseball, I always tell people, just think of it as another metaphor that I'm
I
using.
like
all the
it.
time,
I
you
it
know?
like
is. It
it.
is.
I like
That's why it's
that
poetic.
is so
Yeah.
great. Well, we need to move into our Q&A time. Let's welcome back MayaRose. Another round of applause, everybody, for MayaRose and Sandra Marchetti. Woo! Oh my
Wow.
gosh, just fabulous readings from both of you. Just absolutely, absolutely delightful. Just so much fabulous imagery, and like such a sense of personal observation and also personal, joy. Certainly there were some heavier, topics here too, but we kind of had this like level of inspiration from both of you that was just really wonderful. We are going to get started with our famous first question. Chris Belden, hit him with that question.
All right, let's do it. All right, we'll start with Maya and move on to Sandra. And it's a very simple question, which does not mean it's an easy question, but it's a simple one, which is, how has, in this case, being a poet changed your life?
Oh, wow. Oh my God, in so many ways. I feel like being a poet has helped me to uncover parts of myself that I didn't know existed.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I started in theater, so that's mainly why my stuff is so theatrical.
I
And
can
with
see that.
theater, yeah, you're stepping into other people's words and other people's characters, and I really started writing poetry as a therapeutically, just to kind of get out some of my emotions and feelings. And then I opened up a channel, and I couldn't look back. I'm like, okay, I'm a poet. It was pretty awesome, and it is just I feel like it gives me more sense of pride, because it is creating it from nothing, from me, from my life experience, from my wishes, my dreams. And so it continues to change me, because when I go back and read my earlier works, I feel like my past self is talking to my future self.
I
And
love it. Yes.
yeah, especially because the title of my book is Poems for My Broken Heart. So I wrote a lot of those poems during, challenges and dark times. And so, kind of like recovering from a lot of that stuff, those poems were like my own little self-help book.
Yes.
So it's
Right.
changed my life in so many ways.
Right.
I
That's
love that.
interesting. That's like, musicians, songwriters and stuff. I mean, you imagine, you're singing a song that you wrote 30 years ago about getting your heart broken by, whoever. And then, 30 years later, you're still singing that song, and it's like, it means something different to you, but, you can still tap into that, That's so great. Sandra. Uh-oh,
Sandy, your
somehow
audio.
you're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I
No
guess
worries.
this is my night to be the person who has technical difficulties.
No, it's
No
okay.
worries.
Yeah, no, I feel like I could give a lot of answers, and we all could, because I think it's radically changed most of our lives, but I think I would say for me right at this moment, what's popping in is this idea that poetry really helps me to stay in the present. I'm a very future thinking person.
Yep.
Right. And a lot of us are that, go to graduate school or have successful careers, because I think poets are really smart, observant people, right? And we
Totally.
are always anticipating things that could possibly happen. At least for me, I have bad anxiety, and poetry really helps me to stay present, because when I write a poem, and specifically in revision too, I
Right.
feel this sense of very deep play. Like my mind is
Nice.
completely occupied by writing the poem. It's almost like for me going underwater. And then when I'm done writing, it's like resurfacing, like when I'm coming up
Right.
with a specific session of revision or whatever. And I never feel so subsumed by one thing as I do when I'm writing a poem.
Right.
Always there's 10% or 20% or 30% of my brain, thinking about something else or what I'm doing later that day. But that doesn't happen when I'm writing a poem. I forget what time it is. I forget where I am. And
Right.
that's really good for me.
Yes.
That's really healthy for
Yes.
me. It is meditative. It is
Mm.
spiritual, and that improves my quality of life.
That is so awesome. I can
Yeah.
so relate to what both of you just shared. MayaRose, when you were saying that it opened up a channel for you, and you feel like, you wrote certain poems in these like difficult times, but you're also speaking to your future self. And there's this, conversation that is like sort of very powerful and very healing. And I also love what you said, Sandra, like in the act of writing, that you're fully present, you're not stressed, and it's like it's this healing practice that that is really sort of like honoring, like it's a kind of really beautiful self-care in a way, that ends up also being this incredible piece of art that then other people can relate to, and glean some of those same benefits as they hear it, as they read it,
Right.
as they relate to it.
No,
That is just so
that's
wonderful.
that's fantastic. Yeah. And because when you're anxious, because I know I've been there, right? And you think you need to get out of the present moment, but really, if
Right.
it's the opposite, right? If you just like hang tight and be in that moment,
Mm,
then that's what helps, right?
mhm,
But
mhm.
what you want to do, at least what you think you want to do, is like jump ahead and see what's
Escape.
happening tomorrow. If
Oh
you,
my God, I'm
but if you
so
sit
bad
there
with
and you
that.
just, yeah, if you get consumed by what you're writing, then it's like,
Yes.
it's calm descends. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Everything stops.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Um, I would love to know, both of you have, you have several works out there. I would love to hear about what you are, and Sandy, you mentioned that you have a manuscript in progress right now. I would love for each of you to share what you're working on right now, and maybe any theming that's there, or how it's taking shape. Maya Rose, and then Sandy.
So Grace and Lifelines is my second collection, and I'm also looking for a publisher. My first book was self-published, and anyone who's done the self-publishing world knows that. I mean, it's sort of,
No, I know.
but it's like kindergarten. You have to sort of go through it just to sort of get, something in a bound
It can really
form.
work out. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, and it was, and it was really a bucket list sort of item for me. Like I wanted to have it in a bound, pretty package, and but I really would love to
Mhm.
kind of work with like a, like a small local
Yeah,
publisher where I can kind of have like a creative team and
it's gonna
really
happen.
be. Yeah, yeah, and so for my second collection, that's where I don't want to do the self-publishing route. I want to have like a publishing house for it, and it's Grace and Lifeline. So since this was
Mm,
poems from my broken heart, as I said, going through like really, really tough times, Grace and Lifelines is like all the things that help me get out of it,
yes.
go through that leap. And funny, I had thought I was going to publish the couple years ago, but then
Mm,
COVID happened, and
mm.
I met with a whole host of other challenges, and I
Right,
realized I'm like, I haven't even scratched the surface of material for this book.
right, right,
I think I had a lot of the Grace poems figured out, but I didn't know what Lifeline poems I needed.
right.
because I
It
didn't
was, it was still cooking. It was still yet to be fully born.
what kind of lifelines I required because I hadn't experienced that yet. So now I'm in the lifelines part of it and really reflecting back, those 3 years of like, well, what were my true lifelines? And then the editing. As Sandra, the writing of the poems is the easy part. It's the editing of a collection that's the hard part because you want it to be succinct. You want it to have like a nice flow and a narrative. And, like all of us writers, we have like 200 poems on one theme. You have to like find, okay, weed it down. Like what is going to speak the best of what our intention of the situation is. So that's the process I'm in now. And I'm not rushing it. I'm letting it take its own natural course.
Yes, just kind of trusting that flow. That always works best for me. That's when you get the result you want in the end. Of course, we're editing, we're working on it, but there will be a time when like, okay, it's ready. MayaRose, that's awesome. I so relate to your process, and it's great to hear that Grace and Lifelines is moving along, and you will find that publisher, I'm sure of it. Yes, Sandy.
Okay, so I'm very slow. I'm like a super slow writer. I have a 9 to 5 at a college. I'm not faculty. I'm a staff person. So, I'm going to work every day in the summer too. So it's just it takes longer. And I like MayaRose. I went with a small publisher, independent publisher, not self-published, but, a smaller publisher, limited resources for my first book, Sundress Publications, and they did a great job. But I really, really, really wanted to find a university press to publish my second book. So I was doing the same thing, the publishing switch up. And that made this process of working on IL 228 just takes a lot longer. So I probably had the book ready after 7 years, but 6 years of writing and revising. And then it took 4 years to find that publisher because I really was super picky. What I wanted to publish it with.
I want what I
want. but just to give some faith here, it worked out great. I found the right, it was worth the wait because I felt like that was what the book deserved. So I'm kind of in a similar holding pattern with Diorama, which is a book that's done. I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum too with like how much I write. Like, I'm like, do I finally have enough for a book? Do I have 50 pages? So I've been sending out Diorama for a couple years and it's gotten close. It's been a finalist for some prizes. So I'm hoping it's soon. Yeah, right. I'm on a book tour right now. Like every weekend I'm going, they're doing an
yes, I saw that on your social media.
Yeah. But I've just been going around the Midwest on my like carpetbagging trip. But it's been awesome. And I'll be in Indianapolis soon if anybody watching is, from Indianapolis.
Hey.
I'm doing some more things online. And I'm actually writing a lot more prose right now. Like the cool thing about writing literature about sports is that traditional sports writing, like journalism, has a good audience and they pay real American dollars. Which is crazy. But what's great is like when you start publishing poetry about sports, people are like, hey, would you like to write this article about sports and get paid money for it? So I've been doing some things like that. And it's been really great for me because I don't really think of myself as a prose writer, but it's been a really fun thing to explore. So I'm not sure about a new manuscript at this point. I think once I get this other one in the bag somewhere, I'll be thinking about poetry manuscript, but I'm having fun with prose and writing individual poems. So
I love this. I love this. It's fantastic, Sandra. That is so cool. I'm excited for you.
Imagine if you write this the articles about baseball, then the process goes a lot quicker. You write it, and then it gets out into the world.
It's published the next week.
Books out. It's just like, oh my! I think the people out there who aren't writers don't understand how long it takes.
No.
It's like even when you're done writing, you're done revising and all that stuff. It's like, it's still like forever before your damn book comes out. It's
Yeah.
people still.
Right.
Yes.
No, it's so true. It takes a long time to submit, and
Yeah.
takes, and then even when it's picked up, it's going to be like year.
Mhm.
It takes time,
Mhm.
but it's still so exciting, and it's going to happen. I wanted to. Oh no, I had a question, Chris, and it was oh no, okay,
Right,
okay,
right.
okay. So
Okay.
I've been having all of my own reflections lately about how, like I said, knock on wood, things are really kind of back to normal out there. For you, with your writing, with your reading, with your sharing, performing, connecting with writers, how was it during COVID quarantine time for you, and how has it been since then? Did you find yourself with more writing time? Did you end up connecting to more people online? Are you super excited to be back in person now? Not tonight or online, but how has it been for you these last few years, and how has it changed things, if at all? MayaRose, and then Sandra.
So yeah, it's interesting because it felt like it was forever, the longest, 2.5, 3 years, and now it's like we all forgot about it. But it was very interesting for me because during the shutdown, I had lost my job. I work with kids, and I'd lost my
Mm,
job, and I was just in a very, very, very dark place, like
yeah,
personally, like everyone else.
yeah,
Everything that was a lie got exposed. And so, on a personal level, I was dealing with complete shifts in my whole reality. And
totally.
but during that time, what really saved me, again, the lifelines, was poetry. But
Awesome.
I stopped performing because I'm mainly a performance poet,
Mm-mm.
a spoken word poet, and I had spent years before that just open mics and performing and festivals, and not really, like, other than my book, that was the only sort of tangible written stuff I had done.
Right, right.
And I would do a few videos, but especially because I was a theater person and an actor, I was really more in the world of the stage and the performance and the microphone. So it shifted all of that.
Mm.
And it was necessary. I think I needed to take a step back from performing, because
Mm,
I was getting into, almost, I'm not going to say a caricature of myself, but almost a pattern. If you keep performing the
yeah,
same way, and your audience is expecting a certain way, you sort of,
right.
like, you're locked in and you can't really take any chances.
Yeah, yeah. You start to get a sense of that, and you're like, I need to change things up here. I need to
Yeah.
check back in with myself and come back in a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of like actors when you see them do movie after movie after movie and they're playing the same part, it gives,
Mhm.
and they get typecasted. So when and
Yes.
away and come back, it's like they reinvent themselves. So it was really helpful for me to kind of be able to, take the performance part of me off the shelf and dig into the writing aspect of me. And then also, I came up with my stage name. I had gone through several different types of stage names over the years, but I hadn't really solidified everything.
Yeah.
And then finally, in a meditation, like, the MayaRose just came so clear to me. And when I got my name, I felt like I found my new identity as a
You
poet.
yes.
Yeah, my Sasha Fierce. you
Woo!
know.
I love it.
Yeah, and that's also when I, like, decided to put together the YouTube channel, and I did a lot more traditional poems, because, again, as a spoken word artist, it's a little bit more kind of street poetry. It's a little bit more beatnik, and it's more on the edge of slam. So I really started exploring with, like, adaptation poems and more
Nice.
traditional. I experimented with, like, recreating some, like, Sufi type poetry. So I really
Cool.
found that I was able to kind of go, through the whole circle of genres within the world of
Yeah,
poetry that you
yeah.
can't really do when you're, showing up just as spoken word in this one way. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess the silver lining of that time and and the time since then have been really transformative for you. Like just a really good silver lining. So much, good has come out of it. And, it makes me think of the Grace and Lifelines moment. I'm sure, I see that. I really do see that. That's awesome, MayaRose. So cool. Sandra,
Sure.
COVID quarantine, how was it? How has it been?
Well, just as a person, I think as I've gotten older, I've become more introverted. And I think that happens to a lot of us, not everyone. And I still really like working a crowd. Like I love being on stage.
Woo!
I'm sure that I'm not the only one in this group that feels that way, but I love being in front of people. I love reading. But as far as like going to parties or like going to events, like they weren't appealing to me as much anymore anyway. Because I think just the 9 to 5 and the being in my 30s, and I just was ready for a little break from some of that. So there were some things because of my privilege that I was lucky enough to kind of, have a break from during COVID,
Right.
which in a way was good. I find that the way I function as a poet, like the traditional workshop model of like workshopping poems in classes or with a group of people while they're in process, it's not typically useful for me anymore. The way that I work best is to kind of burrow in and really write my things and then show them to beta readers. Not when I'm done, because like if you're done and you're set and you're like, this
Right.
is thinking, like, you don't want to take the feedback. But
Yeah.
for me, like if it's close, and then I just ask them very specific questions instead of just saying, give me your feedback, ask me very specific questions. So COVID was good for my writing in that way because
Right.
I just had that time. Like, I don't want to say, I was still working throughout COVID and I had a lot of things that I was doing and, life went on, but I didn't have those voices, not as many
Right.
voices. So I was able to just kind of burrow in, write the poems I needed to write without like worrying about, okay, what will people think about this or whatever. And it was kind of similar to when I got home from my MFA. I graduated from my MFA. Thank God I was forced to really explore different genres, styles, do all these different experiments. But then I took what I learned and I was able to apply it with my voice, my style.
Yes.
So I think that like COVID was kind of another period like that, where it was like the input was shut off. Like I kind of stopped taking in as much and just started working with what I had. And I didn't publish a lot during COVID, but I did get a lot of necessary pieces for some of these projects we've been talking about completed. So.
Right. Other people we've heard, and we can certainly relate to this, that time sort of weirdly, in some way for those of us who were, working from home and then just, chilling at home, trying to, do what we should be doing, staying safe and careful. It was kind of like a retreat time, sometimes maddening and others sometimes like very fruitful because it's kind of shutting out a lot of noise. So that is so interesting to hear. And I can really relate to that process as much as I love workshopping and sharing with my friends while a poem is really like in process. I've kind of grown into that sort of situation too, where I would rather like work like heck on a poem and feel really good about it, and then share it with a few trusted people, get some feedback, then having a very like private process. I'm actually very chatty, as you may see, and as Chris knows. I'm a very chatty person. That actually one of the things I talk the least about is poetic works in progress. So I kind of, say, oh, I'm writing. And then I show up one day and I'm like, I have a manuscript. Because I really do love to like have that process be pretty private until I feel like it's really ready for feedback. And, it's going to be, it's more or less, on its way to a final manuscript. And yeah, there are certain these different phases in life, and certain, I guess, world events can facilitate that sort of thing. And I certainly also relate to you, MayaRose, in terms of that transformation. We have this very traumatic thing happening in the world. We're forced to be private, our jobs change, our hearts are broken by all different kinds of changes, caused by this, that, or the other thing. And as much as that's painful, and we don't wish it on anyone else, that transformation, a lot of incredible writing and powerful writing, transformative writing comes out of that. So
and it also, I think, forced me to just like validate my own work, because
yes.
You're always like performing for people and getting that feedback and validation, but when you have no audience, it kind of makes you focus in on, okay, why do I love this? What do I love about it? How do I entertain myself? And see, I don't my process, people and getting that feedback. I'm kind of like I'm an accidental poet. I never, went to school for poetry. I never, through the years, even really liked poetry all that much. I had my favorites. But when I started writing poetry, I purposely didn't get any feedback, and I didn't go to workshops, because I think I was so vulnerable at my my kind of inexperience, or especially because in the world of traditional poetry, it could be a pretty cutthroat world. And I know that for the theater end, and that I had a very thick skin for, and I put myself to that exposure because I was sort of I started studying from a really young age, so I knew that process. But with poetry, because I didn't want to harm that kind of budding part of me, I purposely didn't, which is what brought me to that last poem, Not Open to Feedback, because I get it. People who are poets and traditional poets and have gone to school for it, they're used to that exchange and the feedback and the criticism, and I'm like, I can't take it. That's not how I work. It's not how I raised. I've never been in that world, and so I kind of have to protect it, because if not, I'll just stop writing, because I can't compete with those with that type of education. So I kind of warn people ahead of time. I'm like, I'm not that kind of poet.
Well, listen, MayaRose, your work is so incredible, and please do not ever feel intimidated. And MFA is a very cool thing to have and a great experience, but it's it does not a poet make. A poet is a poet, and you're just so fantastic. And we just love we love the spoken word community, and we're trying to get everybody on here. We want all the poets from all the backgrounds, and I'm glad that you protected that that level of vulnerability, because it's true. If you feel like somebody, this microscope is on you and you have to be a certain thing, it's not going to come. How are you going to write if you're feeling so intimidated? And
if you're not used to that world, I teach theater to young teenage girls who've never done theater. So it's I can't go in with the same type of way I was trained, because I was trained at, I did a conservatory program, and I knew the climate, and I enjoyed it. I love that. But it's someone who's not of that climate, I'm they're not going to have that sort of prerequisite understanding of this is the way this body of people operate. And so recognizing that, which is a cool thing, it's what makes us all different, and it makes us all sort of have our unique approaches to the same joy and love and passion.
We need to have all of our different approaches and protect ourselves from the things that are gonna stifle that. I get it. But we have our famous last double question for you both. Chris, Meldon, hit him with that question.
Let's do it, and we'll go the other way around. We'll go Sandra first, then MayaRose. This time, double question. Question number one is just give us a pearl of wisdom, piece of advice for the writers out there. You've already sprinkled some throughout the night, but let's hear a little nice pearl, and a book recommendation, which we've also heard tonight. But give us a good solid one that you want us to look at. So pearl of wisdom, then a book recommendation. Sandra Marchetti, what do you got for us?
Okay, so we've talked about putting manuscripts together a little bit tonight, and they do a lot of manuscript consulting. If anybody is interested, hit me up. But I'm gonna give you some for free because I think this is it. This is something that everyone needs to
A free
think about.
pearl.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say I think I learned this when I was at an AWP conference. I was at a panel with a bunch of publishers, and they were, I ripped them off. And this one publisher, he was saying every line in your book must be a poem, and every poem must earn its place.
I like it.
And the book itself is the final poem, or the book itself is the poem.
That's awesome.
And to me, that's been really helpful. Like, I just look at every single line and think, is this line worthy? Is this line its own poem? Considering the line break and the words in it and
Right.
the sounds and everything. And then book recommendation. I think the actual book is propping up my laptop right now. But Andrew, seriously, Andrew Forbes, if you like the baseball stuff, he's a Canadian writer who writes essays about baseball. This is an arc, actually.
I can see how you've marked that book. That is a favorite right there.
I did a book review.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, and so this is the copy that he sent me to do the book review. It has a much prettier cover. This is the sequel, but he has several books of essays, and they're very short essays about baseball, and they're kind of myths, legends. Some are made up, some are true stories, but I would check out Andrew Forbes, Canadian essayist.
Cool.
That's awesome, Sandy. Thank you so much. All right,
Okay.
and MayaRose, a pearl of wisdom.
Pearl wisdom. I would say my pearl wisdom, and I say this to a lot of people, that, we all have an inner poet within us. And my wisdom would be like to search for that inner poet, that inner story you have, that inner expression, not for the sake of being an artist, not for the sake of, for anything other than the fact that, our hearts need to let out
Yes,
that stuff that gets buried, and poetry is the easiest and I think the best form in order to express that, even if no one else sees it. It's like our heart. That's how our heart is the release valve. It's the vent.
Totally.
That I would say everybody find that within you. And then book recommendation. Actually, this is going to sound a little bit corny, being not a traditional poet, but like I said, I'm an actor, and my first love was Shakespeare. And what I love about discovering Shakespeare as an actor and then as a poet is that he's both. And I would say Shakespeare's sonnets and poems, because I think there's just so much beauty and wisdom in it, and it's you could just utilize it in so many ways. So, and I love Shakespeare, so I love to promote him, especially as a Black person, because it's not really heavily received or taught in the Black community. People see it as a white person's poet. So, but it's not.
MayaRose, that's an awesome recommendation. Yes, absolutely. There is so much. I feel like there's so much we can do with Shakespeare all the time. And like you said, a poet, and an actor and a theater person. I could so see that for you. That is so cool. That is an awesome recommendation. Thank you so much for both of your pearls. And more than anything, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Thank you for your readings, MayaRose and Sandra Marchetti. Woo! Thank you so much.
Maya.
And
Chris.
It was an awesome evening. So great to spend the evening with you both. Thank you so much to our audience for tuning in. Just a reminder that all of our readings are archived on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So if somebody missed it, they can catch it on the replay. You can just go ahead and send them the link. And Chris, remind everybody what's coming up next Friday.
Yeah, well, we're live in person at our open mic night at Eco Evolution. That's Friday, this coming Friday, the 23rd at 7 p.m. And we got a whole bunch of folks from the Bronx: Ron Mark Thompson, Eric Rosenbaum, Dara Kalima, plus Ben Grossberg, and then everybody else who signed up.
It's gonna be awesome. Please come on down.
All-nighter. I don't know. It's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be awesome. All right. Thank you so much, MayaRose and Sandy. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.